No. Well, Indiana's doctor shortage is quite critical indeed. At the present time, Indiana, although ranking 11th in population in the nation, ranks 33rd in the nation in its physician to population ratio. This means that many Indiana citizens and many Indiana communities are without the adequate services of physicians as well as physicians' helpers. And when we speak of the medical shortage, we speak not merely in terms of doctors, but in terms of the entire health team. And when we're trying to remedy this great shortage, we must consider our program in terms of the total education of the health team. This educational process is a complicated one and has to be conducted at the university level. Every other state in the union is facing the same problem. Even those states who have an adequate number of physicians now realize that with the tremendous increase in population that they're going to have to make provisions to provide an adequate supply of physicians for the coming years. Otherwise, their citizens are going to be short and needed medical help. Well, Indiana's physician shortage today is quite critical when you consider that Indiana, although 11th in the nation in population, ranks 33rd in the nation in the physician to population ratio. This ratio means the number of physicians available to handle a certain number of people. I think that in terms of real community need, we can go to many communities throughout the state and find there's a tremendous shortage of physicians. Many communities that had 2 and 3 physicians today may have 1 or no physician, so that these communities are quite short in their available medical help. The recent study from Indiana University emphasized that there's going to be about a 33% increase in population in the state of Indiana in the next few years by 1985, and that we will need about 62 to 6,800 physicians to supply the state's needs by that time. We are far short of our current needs, and we will be even shorter by the time 1985 rolls around unless very vigorous steps are made to redress this serious shortage of physicians that we're now laboring under. Indiana at the present time has only 1 medical school, whereas states comparable in size and economic resources have 3 and are planning 4th medical schools, and certainly by the time 1985 comes around, many of these states will be on their 5th medical school. So that we find that Indiana's needs are really critical and at a crisis stage at the present time, and unless we provide the resources to match even larger federal funds, that we will be in a very serious state indeed from the standpoint of the health care of our family, our friends, and all of our citizens.
In 1965, a medical education committee was appointed by the state legislature to study the future medical needs of the state of Indiana. After 1.5 years, this committee made a recommendation that the future medical school for the state of Indiana should be placed on the campus of the Ball State University. Our state legislative study committee is in full agreement with other committees that have studied this problem throughout the nation. All are in agreement. These committees have recommended that the medical school be at the site of the parent campus of the state university. The reasons for the establishment of a medical school on the parent campus of the state university are many. We can take advantage of the computer centers, the postgraduate programs in the many sciences, the library facilities, audiovisual and educational and TV facilities, the use of the existing buildings, the general administrative help which is currently present, and the faculty support that is needed. All these factors mean higher quality and better medical education to a savings of the taxpayers.
Fine. Well, it's true that medical education is expensive, but when you look at the cost in terms of the health of the people, the cost is comparatively minor. The cost to the people of Indiana for a new medical school would be in the range of $13 to $15 million. What would this provide? This would provide a medical center plant on the university campus, which would be worth the neighborhood of $38 to $40 million. Approximately two-thirds of the money for this project would come from existing and already committed federal funds. So the people of Indiana would be getting a very substantial bargain and would recall that Indiana, ranking 11th in the nation in population, 15th in per capita income, ranks 33rd in the number of physicians in relationship to its population. We find that Indiana can not only afford but must make the steps to provide this service for the people of the state. When we consider that other states of comparable size to Indiana, much smaller economically than we are and far less able to provide these services, 3 of such states now are starting their 4th medical school, where Indiana still has only 1 at the present time. This is one of the main reasons that a recent legislative study committee, based on a very thorough and exhausting year-and-a-half study, came up with the recommendation: 1, the state needed a new medical school desperately, that it needed to provide better support for the existing school, and that a second school had best be established in a university setting in accordance with generally accepted national and international criteria. I think one of the most universally held concepts in medical education today is that medical education is a part of higher education, and that to be carried out effectively, it must be carried out in the university setting. The medical school must be a part of the university, not only geographically, but philosophically and administratively as well. The reasons for this concept are very strong historically. Medical education from the earliest university was a very integral part of the university picture, and has remained so today. In fact, it is even more important today when we're trying to have our medical education be less and less of a trade school atmosphere and more of a higher educational experience for the student, so that the student is brought into touch with a total picture of humanity from the standpoint of the social sciences, the behavioral sciences, as well as from the biological sciences. Our physicians must not only be well educated, but they must be wise, compassionate, and they must have the capacity to grow and develop, because science changes so rapidly that the student does not have this capacity to adapt and to accept new information. He will be obsolete in 5 and certainly in 10 years. And I think this is perhaps the most important reason for having the medical school a part of the university. Certainly, committee was a very able committee made up of 10 distinguished legislators, including the 2 physician members of the legislature. The committee spent a year and a half conducting its study, visiting interested communities, visiting out-of-state medical centers, having distinguished educators come and appear before it and give their ideas. They have gone into this matter of medical education very thoroughly indeed. They have spent a year and a half in this very thorough and careful study, and they have all realized very well the shortage that Indiana faces and the needs of the future. It is a most responsible report. The school currently is oversized and overcommitted. The school is twice as large as the average national school, and certainly should not be enlarged. Since we need to double the number of admitting students in the next 10 years, we're going to have to look to the establishment of new medical schools, not 1 but more, 2 at the present time and perhaps 3 within 10 years. This will do a great deal towards upgrading medical education in the state. But the first part is that we should support the school we have adequately, and we agree with this totally. The second part concerns the internship and residency programs throughout the state, and if we realize that the state of Indiana, in terms of its population, has only half as many internships and residencies available as the national average, and only half of these are filled, we find there's a very important need to be met here. This is a secondary need in many respects, because you cannot fill these without adequate university affiliation of these programs, and if you have only 1 medical center in the state, you will have inadequate total support for this program. It will provide a burden too great for an already overburdened medical center. So that we're going to need more medical centers to provide the support that these internships and residencies need throughout the state. Now, the third and really the key recommendation of the report is that Indiana needs at least one new medical school now, and that this should be carried out in accordance with generally accepted national criteria for medical education, namely that medical education as a part of higher education should be carried out in a university setting. The committee visited the various interested communities and institutions and selected Ball State University as the most suitable site for a medical school at the present time.
Ball State is interested in a second medical school primarily for the reason that our first purpose has long been that of serving the needs of the state of Indiana. Now, as to how we are able to service this need. In the preparation of physicians for any state at the present time, the need is for far more than simply the training of doctors at the graduating of so many physicians per year. In addition to the physicians, we have also a need for the development of a total health team. We have pre-medical programs. We have those dealing with therapeutics, with technologists, with nursing, with speech and hearing therapy, and with many special programs on mentally retarded, the deaf, the hard of hearing, all of which constitute an important part of any medical program throughout the United States. We also have the land already owned by the state of Indiana, which represents a considerable saving in total investment. This represents a tremendous saving to the taxpayers of Indiana in the extent to which we are not finding the need to simply duplicate services that are already here and available to people. We believe further that our staff that is already accumulated in the fields of science, in the fields of psychology, in the social sciences, and in the humanities represent a tremendous asset to any such organization as is required for the establishment of a medical curriculum.
Both lay and professional committees on a national level have come to the conclusion, have published these recently, that our greatest shortage is in the area of the family physician, the family doctor. This is the physician of first contact, and this is the segment of the medical profession which is diminishing in supply rather than increasing in supply at the present time. I think any community, particularly the more rural communities, feel this need very acutely indeed, because this type of physician needs a different type of educational background in many respects than the physician going into a highly specialized type of operation or into research. And so that among the needs considered by the Ball State and community committees over the past 2 and 3 years has been how to correct this very real shortage, not only for Indiana but for the nation, in terms of the Ball State program. The Ball State program from the beginning has emphasized the importance of having in the educational framework a Department of Community Medicine and Family Practice. One of the major parts of this type of department would be to improve the education and increase the supply of family doctors for the state of Indiana.
It is generally true at the present time that most schools of medicine are associated with universities, and almost all new schools are being associated with universities before they become approved. The reasons for the association with the university, which I tried to bring out, are really threefold. One is the university represents a standard of excellence in education. With the proprietary schools that formerly existed in medicine in the last century, historically, therefore, there's a reason for tying in with the university to assure a standard of excellence. Also, there are the associations with other faculty members in the physical sciences, the life sciences, and the social sciences, which are part of the need in medical education as they develop more applications of these sciences. And third, The university is the area which is concerned with the needs of the future. They are concerned with developing manpower for the future. They are concerned with developing ideas for the future. Schools of medicine are also concerned with these points and therefore should be part of the larger group as indicated by the term university. There's a fairly long period of preparation that is necessary before one can complete one's funding to develop a new school, because all schools now look to the federal government to pay a reasonable proportion of the costs. Some of the hurdles that must be covered before one can seek federal funding are the following. First, one must have reasonable assurance from the accrediting agencies that the plans will result in a school that can be accredited. Second, it is necessary to develop the architectural plans to the level of schematic drawing, showing all the relationships and square feet involved in each room. And third, it is necessary to have funds in hand to use as the matching funds for a federal grant. The length of time involved in accomplishing all these varies from one place to another, but may take anywhere from 1 to several years. Medical schools are somewhat different from other schools and colleges for two reasons. One, the federal government has appropriated millions and millions of dollars to be used for research in medicine with the hope that some of our problems will be solved more rapidly. Consequently, a large portion of budgets of medical schools is represented by research funds coming for specific projects. Furthermore, medical schools have to turn out a product, a physician, who is capable of taking real responsibility for others, making decisions which involve life and death. Therefore, he must have an education over a prolonged period of time with graded responsibility under supervision. And this means that at the clinical level particularly, the ratio of faculty to students is higher. As a result of these two factors, the faculty-student ratio in the country as a whole for full-time faculty is 1 faculty member for every 2.1 registered medical students.
A small town like this in any locality faces pretty much the same dilemma today. We all have a need for additional doctors, and the matter of trying to obtain them, getting them interested in our particular locality, it's quite a problem because everyone is bidding for these doctors as they become available. Very, very much interested in obtaining a doctor for Red Key.
Need one very badly at all times, but because if you have sickness, particularly in the night, and you can call on someone, it gives you a much better feeling.
Don't have the automobiles in the way of getting out of town, and there's a limited amount of money that they earn or get from Social Security.
Have to go 12 miles to the doctor. A lot of times you just don't go. You just tough it out.
At least very inconvenient. We have had emergencies at our house with the boys in athletics at school, which necessitated quick trips to Portland to the hospital. Since there wasn't a doctor here, the only thing we have to do is to take the boys to the emergency ward at the hospital.